So each week I talk to a lot of senior executives from firms right across the Asia-Pacific region. And I talk to them about the challenges that they face, both personal challenges and challenges for the firms that they work for. Now, rarely is the topic of digital absent from these conversations. So I want to sum them up. I want to cover two areas over the next 15 minutes. I want to talk about the opportunities that these people convey, and then I'd like to cover how we capitalize on those opportunities. Now, many firms represented in the room today. I'm sure you've done many SWOT analyses, strategic plans. I can see eyes rolling at the thought of a SWOT analysis. And you would identify hundreds of digital opportunities. But today, I would like to sum up just 4 opportunities. And these are opportunities that I believe have significance here in the Asia-Pacific region, have huge opportunity, and I think are relevant for each and every one of you. Number 1, the unconnected consumer. The World Economic Forum has growth of the digital economy as one of its top priorities. But importantly, they recognize that people are a fundamental part of the digital ecosystem. And that's important because there's billions and billions of people that are still not connected in the world today. And of course, we know many of those billions are here in the Asia-Pacific region. These people, they'll actually become consumers for the first time, many of them, but they'll also become online for the first time. And they will adopt smartphones and other digital technology faster than we ever did. They'll adopt e-commerce, m-commerce, and also, importantly, s-commerce faster than we ever did. So we cannot ignore the unconnected consumer. Number 2, China. So these conversations I have with many senior people, all complaining about slowing growth in China. It's an excuse for perhaps slower business performance. But I say to them, take your focus off China at your peril. Now, the bears in the market today, for those reading the financial press, you'll all know, talk of slower growth in China, 2015 slower, 16 projected to be down, 17 possibly even down further. But what they all fail to mention is you take 2015 alone. In 2015 alone, China's economy grew more than the combined economies of Thailand and the Philippines. That's in a year of slower growth. 2016, they're projecting slower growth again, but it will still grow by more than the size of the Thai and the Philippines economies. We cannot ignore it. Much of that growth is driven by the digital economy in China, or the transformation of analog industries because of digital technology. So the companies that are looking at the long game in China are investing. They're taking risks. Uber's actually a great example. Some of you might have read a couple of weeks back, Uber publicly stated they're burning $1 billion of cash each year in China to build the user base, to build their driver base. And that's against strong local competition like Didi Kuwati that have established positions. They know that to have a position in the long term, the investment risk has to be taken today. So we have to focus on China. Thirdly, transformation of analog industries. Let me talk about an example here to illustrate this. I'll take the finance and insurance sectors. So in finance and insurance, we've seen both utter complacency, but also brilliant examples of the adoption of digital technology and capitalizing on digital opportunity. So a simple example, Ping An Bank, Shenzhen, China. Ping An knows that there's this huge growing part of the market, which is digitally savvy young consumers. And they have different needs. So they established Orange Bank. Now, Orange caters to the fact that these people want different touch points. Their primary access point is their mobile. And so every aspect, every touch point that that offer has is tailored to these consumers. And they're growing share. They're succeeding as a result of that. That's a pretty straightforward strategy. Something at the more sophisticated end of the spectrum, again in China, insurance, car insurance. In the old days, we filled out a form at the start of the year, told them about our driving behavior, and the premium was calculated. But now, with sensors on vehicles, and all our cars have sensors, we can track your driving behavior on a day-to-day basis. We can calculate a premium that's based on your actual driving behavior. This is part of what the Internet of Things is, that Matt will talk further about. But it changes the whole actuarial model of insurance. It changes their business model. So transformation of analog industries is something that we have to all be conscious of. But it's not just analog industries, it's also digital industries. Now, because we come from traditional firms, many of us feel that digital industries are a closed shop, or existing players have monopolies that we just can't tap into. I'll give you another example, though, why I don't believe this is true. And I'm going to talk about web publishing. So websites, one of the most mature parts of the digital economy. Websites have been around for more than 2 decades. Who would have thought there was opportunity for a new player? But there's this firm that I'm working with, and they've identified a need for code-free website design and software that can deliver that. It makes it much more easy for just web designers to get something launched. It brings the time taken to generate a website from weeks to days. The cost comes down. But importantly, it makes websites available to the 60% of firms in the world today that do not have a web presence, mainly SMEs, but we're talking a $200 billion US industry, and somebody's identified a huge opportunity that no one thought ever existed within that. So we have 4 opportunities here, all of them big: unconnected consumer, China, and then the transformation of digital and analog industries. But how do we capitalize on this? It's challenging. It's challenging because of who we are, myself included, the people in the room here today. We are not digital natives, most of us anyway. I can see a few in the room. We're not millennials born after 1982, and most of the firms we work for are not digital first. Our firms often feel threatened. My firm feels threatened by new digital entrants, by competitors that may be adopting digital technology first and faster. And we've all had great digital strategies that sometimes result in spectacular success or spectacular failure. But we're all business leaders in this room. We know the revenue opportunities that digital presents. We know that we can have increased return on capital and improvement in our shareholder value. So how do we go about it? I'd like to sum up 5 points. Firstly, we need to raise our risk appetites. And possibly, we also need to have an appetite for disruption, or even an appetite for the destruction of traditional business models. Go back to the year 2000, Forbes 500 list, and then fast forward to today. Half of those firms are missing. And the analysts in the market tell us that is because of digital disruption. Those firms have disappeared. They didn't have the appetite. And there is a strong correlation between the digital quotient of a firm and its risk appetite. Those firms that weren't prepared to take the risk to respond to this disruption don't exist today. So we need to raise our risk appetite. Secondly, we need an integrated digital and corporate strategy. Sometimes I like to think we don't, or we shouldn't have digital strategy at all. Again, I'll paint a picture, an example. I work with a major media firm, print media. We all know they're struggling with monetizing digital. And this firm actually had a great digital strategy, brilliant. They even had a millennial as a chairman, which is pretty rare. So this firm adopted this digital strategy. They created a team, they got KPIs, business units, even had a digital sales force. But the customer over here that needed an advertising platform and program, they had somebody coming to them with print, somebody coming with digital, somebody coming with events, confused. Meanwhile, the competitor over here has a holistic cross-media offer that's presented to them. So this firm's share started to decline. The digital strategy failed. We need integration of digital and corporate strategy. Thirdly, data-empowered decision-making. Now, there's many market researchers in the room today, myself included. It's my background. Any of you with your eyes open will know that survey-based research is dying a slow death. Why? Increased computing power, cheaper computing power, means stronger marketing analytics. You combine this with data coming from social, from search, from other digital sources, and what it brings to the power, the precision, the accuracy of our business decision-making is significant. To do this, though, firms need two things. One, they need a data-driven culture, but they also need people that know when and when not to use data in decision-making. And secondly, the firm needs to treat data as an asset. Now, 80% of CEOs would say that their firm, they have operationalized the concept of data as an asset within their firm. But only 10% say the firm treats it like that. So that's a lost opportunity. We need to drive data-empowered decision-making through the firm. Fourthly, we need a fast and agile culture. Again, I mentioned most of us do come from traditional industries, strong heritage, great traditions, strong values. We don't want to eschew any of these. What we want to do is we want to introduce and infuse speed, agility, and external focus, and an ability to learn. Another example of how we do that, DBS Bank, Singapore. So they sponsor and run a startup accelerator program for small businesses, mainly fintechs and digitals in the Singapore market. I work with them on this program. And the program itself is brilliant, but that's not the true brilliance. The true brilliance is they take senior managers, mid-level managers out of the DBS corporate structure, bring them into the program. Some actually do startups, but many of them are just advisors and mentors and supporters. And what that means is that when those people walk back into the bank, into their day jobs, they go there with energy, with passion, with entrepreneurship, and it drives this startup culture within the corporate. Brilliant. So a fast and agile culture. Finally, we need a digitally savvy talent pool within the organization. So last year, my thought was to do this on the C-suite of the organization. Maybe we need a chief digitalization officer, somebody who kind of has responsibility for implementing the digital strategy. But my perspective on this has changed. I think that the only way that a firm can truly respond to digital opportunity and push a digital strategy and a combined corporate strategy throughout the organization is if the CEO takes responsibility for this. If this is not the job of the CEO within the organization will fail. Just think back to my Forbes 500 example. Half of those firms gone. Didn't take risk, didn't have the guts to make decisions, didn't have inspirational leadership. If you don't have inspirational leadership, that digital thinking, the opportunity will not filter to all layers of the organization. That is a critical factor. But to sum up, I'd like to go back to my very first point, risk. We need to raise our risk appetites, both personally and within the firms we work for. We possibly need an appetite for disruption or the destruction of traditional business models to capitalize on digital. So as we go through today, we've got this brilliant lineup of speakers, both this session and in the subsequent sessions. I'd like you to think to yourself and ask yourself, would you be prepared to take the risks both personally and as firms, that these people have taken in their careers and within the firms that they work for. Would you be prepared to take that risk? Have that thought with you as you listen today.